Hi everybody, welcome to TIA Now. I'm Clarence Reynolds. What's a primary way for your organization to differentiate itself from the competition? Well, better customer experience. But creating a better customer journey is both a science and an art. We're joined by Hans Schmolke, CEO of Metrinomics, and Ken Koffman, SVP of Technology and Standards at TIA, to discuss. Welcome.
Thank you.
So Hans, you have dedicated your entire career to customer experience management. Is customer experience a question of quality or of general business success?
Well, it is treated in many ways, in many cases, like a question of quality. But over the years, I think the only thing that makes sense is to regard this to be a question of business success. Why? Because each of our customers is the source of cash flow. It may be micro cash flow, but we need all this micro cash flow to flow together to pay for employees, for investment, for everything. So the source of cash flow is the customer, and we have to treat customer experience as a cash flow question finally.
How big is the customer experience issue? And how is it impacting business?
It has become a key issue over the last 2 decades, I would say, because there's so much technical solutions that are similar. And at the end, you don't want to spend your money on technical items alone. You want to spend your money on things that help you to manage your day-to-day work or entertainment, whatever it may be. So in many industries, it's a key question, meanwhile.
I might jump in on that.
Yeah,
also. TIA, with the support of Metrinomics, last year we did a survey for the wireless industry of 6 countries, 18 carriers within Latin America and the United States. And through that work, we found that there's approximately $72 billion, with the B, dollars worth of annual business that's at risk. And at risk meaning that potential churn. And it's through the surveying and the analytics, much of which that Metrinomics performs, can we understand how do we try to reduce that number. And if we can reduce that number 10%, think of what you can do with $7.2 billion to be reinvested into areas to expand services, provide additional value, or even deliver to the shareholders.
A lot of businesses, Ken, are using KPIs to measure their network performance. Yeah. Why is that insufficient?
Well, first thing I would say is the use of KPIs has allowed operators to dramatically improve the services in our networks. All of us who use communications can attest to the additional capabilities that we have now versus what we had several years ago. So I'm not going to say KPIs are bad. Well, what I can say, though, is that KPIs measure average performance. So even if it's measuring a performance that's extremely good, like downtime in the 5 or 6, 9 range, it's still measuring average performance. Users' opinions are not shaped by averages, they're shaped by individual transactions. And then it only takes a few negative transactions to create a negative perception, which is very difficult to overcome. So we feel that in order to really address loyalty, user loyalty, you need to focus in on a platform that will capture information based on transactions, not based on averages. And when you do that, you have an ability to solve those problems that will build loyalty.
And how is your approach to the Quest WCX unique?
Well, I think the classical approach to all of how do you deal with customer satisfaction is that you create a whole series of operational KPIs, technical data that you use to try to optimize your network. And then asynchronously, you do a survey to try to understand what are the customer opinions. And that's great, but you then have to try to connect the dots between your operational results and your customer feedback. We think that's reversed. That if you can start with getting feedback from the customer, breakdown of all the myriad of things that are creating their impression of their operator and their partnership with their operator. If you can break that down, and we believe you can, to 7 to 10 items that affect at least 80% of the user behavior, if you can do that, then you can focus on the operational measures that address those 7 to 10 items. And you're going to be much more efficient in being able to build and create loyalty. That's how we operate. That's how we think we're unique.
One of the critical points is that sometimes the same words may mean different things to customers and to suppliers. Like in networks, there's network issues. So if you ask a CTO what is a network issue, he has a clear opinion about it because he has all the experience. If you ask a customer who uses the same words, probably he has not the insight into the network to judge on what is really happening. Still, he judges because customer pays for it. And for the money, the customer has some kind of expectation of quality of service that is being brought to him. And then at a certain point, you don't want to disappoint people. So it is very important to understand what customers see to be a network issue. And this network issue may have to do a lot with the context of using the network. Like if you're relaxed, you react differently to some kind of problem. If you're very stressed, then you have a different expectation. You need this service now. So we need to consider all these contextual information, and that's what is difficult about it.
And also with everyone using a different vendor equipment, a different software, how can the Quest WCX really deal with all the different architectures?
The interesting thing is that you may have different architecture and different equipment and different philosophies behind that, but the customer is still the same. So people on the other side of the equipment that use the equipment, they have a certain expectation that the equipment has to respond to. And our approach to this is to have a common layer for all kinds of equipment, a basic layer that connects to all the different dots in the equipment that are necessary to adjust services according to customer preferences.
And Ken, why is this topic so difficult to communicate to other organizations and people sort of skirt around it?
Yeah. Well, our approach is a bit contrarian to the classic design, and I think as engineers, which most of us are, we like operational hard data, and we want to start with hard data and deal with data and facts and things. Dealing with customer perceptions is looser, and therefore using that as a basis to start your actions is very difficult for some folks to get their arms around. They'd much rather and feel much more comfortable with technical and operational numbers. You know, it's something that people are coming around to. As we evolve to 5G, which is coming very soon, you'll see individualized services. And if you don't have the pulse of your customers clearly understood, you're not going to be able to provide the kinds of products and services they need. We feel that folks will come this way. They will understand that it's much more efficient to start with the customer, understand what their concerns or issues are, then create a vehicle to capture that and address it. So it's an evolution. We expect that folks will be forced to go that way, right? As I mentioned before, you know, $72 billion of potential loss is a number that catches the boardroom's attention. So we believe that if they aren't seeing progress, and if you look at the overall situation, the user base is growing, but that's because the population is growing, right? But once you get saturation, if you start seeing movement and you're losing business, I expect folks will be looking at new ideas.
Well, I want to thank both of you for being with us today.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
And also, we'd like to hear from you, so reach out to us on Facebook or Twitter, and you can also see more videos at tianow.org and on our YouTube channel. Thanks for watching.